Good morning. Welcome to Viking Preparedness. I am Pastor Joe Fox. It is early in the morning. It's been thunderstorming, and I need more of this. A cup of Joe for Joe. I'm considering starting a podcast, like once a week for an hour. And it just struck me when I said that, maybe I could call it something like A Cup of Joe with Joe. Who knows? Hey, today I would like to talk about food storage. I've had several questions on this in the last little bit. And for some of you, it may be, yeah, we know that, PJ. But hopefully there'll be some little tidbits in there. I haven't paid for, handgun, rifle, shotgun, firearms instruction for a few years, maybe even several. But I used to. And I would go to the classes, and without patting myself on the back, I was one of the better people in the class. And back then, a 2-day class was costing $400-ish. So that'll kind of date how long ago that was, plus, plus ammo, plus transpo, plus housing, plus, blah, blah. And I was happy after spending upwards of $1,000, all told, for a weekend, if I learned one thing. Because at the level I was at, I kind of knew everything else. Again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, I just knew a lot. And so if I learned one thing, that was good enough for me, because I wasn't going to learn it anywhere else. So there you go. There's that. Food storage. Because there are many of y'all who are new to this, who are just waking up, and I'm glad you're awake. Time to wake up and smell the coffee. And those of you demeaning my choice of Folgers, shame on you. I have good coffee. I have beans. I have a hand grinder now. Somebody sent me. Thank you. I have many cans of coffee put away in the long-term storage. Number 10 cans. But I'm not a coffee. It's going to disappoint some of y'all. I know. I'm not a coffee connoisseur, man. I'm just like, give me the caffeine. Let me get going. I don't have time to. It has hints of, I appreciate good coffee. I do. I'm not willing to take the time to do it. You know who makes me good coffee here? Oh, can I tell them? No, I can't. Somebody else who lives here on Shofar Mountain. Oops, sorry. Earthquake! Somebody else who lives on Shofar Mountain. When they come down and visit in the morning, they make good coffee sometimes. It's our coffee. All right, food storage. General principles. I'm a concepts guy. Generally speaking, you can store a year's supply of food, which for most of you is more than you were planning on storing. You can store a year's supply of food from your grocery store. In that case, within reason, what you want to do is store what you normally eat and eat what you store, thus ensuring rotation of your food supplies. If you don't normally eat Spam, then buying 8 cases of Spam might not be a good idea. Might not. There are nuances to this. But generally speaking, to the extent that you can, store what you normally eat. Now, I've said here before, one of our problems with that is vegetables. We eat a lot of vegetables. If you saw my last video and saw all the salad dressing we got, we eat a lot of salad, and we eat a lot of wild greens and things like that. We don't eat a lot of canned green beans and canned corn and canned peas and stuff like that. But you can't store fresh lettuce out of your garden. Although my wife does store kale and curly dock and other greens that she dehydrates in our solar dehydrator. And so maybe I'll come back to that. But generally speaking, we store a fair amount of canned vegetables. And then about 2 years later, after we get them, we give them away and buy new. So that money was wasted. It goes to a good cause. It goes to poor people. And it's still fine. We're not giving them horrible food. If this was YouTube, somebody would say that. It's still fine food. I've eaten green beans and corn much older. So, store what you eat what you store. So you're always eating the oldest food now. So if you have 5 years worth of ketchup on your shelves, you should be squirting the 5-year-old, the oldest ketchup that you bought onto your macaroni and cheese or scrambled eggs, because you do that, right? All right, so that's one. You want to keep your food storage, again, to the extent that you can, cool, dark, dry, and bug-free. Sounds like a basement or a root cellar. I get a lot the question, can I store my food in my garage or in a shipping container? I live in Phoenix and it gets to 135 degrees in the summertime, and in my shipping container it goes up to 432. Here's my understanding on that. Canned goods? Oh, heck no. I don't even think you want to store ammunition in those conditions. But as far as dried goods, which we're going to get into, but basically wheat, beans, corn, what am I forgetting? Rice. That'll do okay in heat, as long as you take the precautions I'm going to talk about for those things. It should do fine. I have stored the Big Four, as I call it, in a garage in Kansas, and it gets really, really hot. I mean, the outside temperature goes to 107. The garage gets hotter in the summer, and in winter it goes below 0. So I've stored it in there and then eaten said product, and it's fine. In fact, in some ways, super freezing can help you. So I guess let's go there. I probably should have made a list. Here's a hint. This right here behind me is going to go white side down above our bathroom on top of 2x6s that we're going to stain dark so it matches we have some dark accents in the house. So it's going to sit on that to look kind of, what do they call that kind of architecture, sweetie? With the big beams and the white, like in Europe?
Elizabethan?
I don't know. White ceiling with big beams under it. And then we're going to stick on top of that plywood, like 1/2-inch plywood. And then we're going to put on top of that bins of clothes so we have some place to store them in this little house of ours. If that wasn't there, I'd be holding up for you, because I have one copy, my book, which you should buy, because a lot of what I'm going to say is in that book on food storage. And it's called Survivalist Family, Prepared Americans for a Strong America by Joe Fox. It's a great book. It is a good book. Other people who have read it will tell you it's a good book. You should get it. Look online. Google it. So I'm going to tell you a lot of that. Let's talk about the Big Four. The Big Four is what I recommend for people who are trying to put in a big food stock, a long-term food stock, a year plus of food. How do you do that? Shopping at your grocery store won't do so good there. And so I recommend wheat, beans, rice, and corn. I remember, because I get the question, where do you get that? And it kind of, I have to remember who I was to be able to answer that question with any kind of sensitivity. I mean, honestly, because to me, it's just like it's a no-brainer anymore. But I'm not who I was, and I don't live where I lived. The first time I bought rice and beans. I bought a lot of rice and beans. You can buy that at a grocery store. The better place usually is a Costco type store, big warehouse food store where you have the big flat things, and just go get 50-pound bags of rice and 50-pound bags of beans and throw them on there. If you listen to Dave Ramsey, and if you have a credit card debt or you're in any kind of big debt other than your home, If you cannot manage your finances, you should listen to Dave Ramsey. He comes on the radio. He's a big proponent of rice and beans diet. We have rice and beans and rice and rice and beans. It's a cheap way to eat and get all your nutrition, pretty much. And so you can buy those things anywhere, rice and beans. But I remember the first time I bought corn, and I wanted a lot of corn. And I'd been reading in like survival manuals. The internet wasn't out yet. And, and I've been reading in like survival magazines, and people talked about feed stores and stuff. And I lived in Northern Virginia, which then was suburban hell, and now is just like, ugh. And I had to drive like an hour. We lived in, I think, Chantilly at the time. I had to drive like an hour west before I could find a feed store. And it's a bunch of guys that intimidated the heck out of pleated khaki polo shirt wearing me. They all look like I do now. And I showed up, and there's guys pulling up, and they have like the small dump trucks, and one guy had a pickup truck, and they just pull up underneath this spout, and it goes, and all this corn would fill in their truck, and then they'd pay for it and leave. And I wanted something like 100 pounds of it. And I walk in, and they saw me coming, right? It's like, you ain't from around here. And I said, hey, how y'all doing? And I'd like to buy some corn. He goes, well, corn we have. And I said, how much is it? And he told me, I don't remember. And I said, well, I'd like to buy 200 pounds. He goes, oh, just 200 pounds, huh? I remember thinking at the time 200 pounds was a lot. And he goes, we have some bagged up over here, and you can buy that. And I said, I didn't know how to phrase it, because I didn't know if you'd get in trouble asking if you could, or if they wouldn't sell it to you if they thought you were going to eat it. And I said, so is there anything on this corn? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, like, could I make cornbread out of it if I wanted to? And he had the truck was, one of those spouts was filling up a pickup truck, and he had like an old coffee can or something, and he just sticks it into the flow of corn coming down, like that, pulls it out, grabs, I remember this, he showed it to me, he grabbed the kernel, and he went, yep, you can eat it. I thought it was a very effective sales technique. And then he showed me his thing, and he goes, now look, it's got like it had like chaff and stuff like that in there. He goes, it's got that in it. And sometimes there's even rocks in there, but this is what it looks like. And I'm like, okay. So where do you get your corn? I just bought 200 pounds of corn at a farm store. Out in the country, they have farm stores. They sell stuff to take care of horses, like grooming supplies and medical supplies and barbed wire and fencing and gates and all kinds of chicken feed and deer hunting stuff, and a little hardware store section, and sometimes they sell wood stoves, and they usually have a section where they sell like jeans and flannel shirts or check shirts and bandanas and boots, and they're farm stores. Around here they call them TSC, the Tractor Supply Company, and Atwoods. And they sell all kinds of feed, chicken feed, duck feed, horse feed, cow feed. They sell salt blocks and everything. They're cool stores. They typically sell feed corn. Now, feed corn is corn that is intended to be fed to your critters. Farmers feed corn to cows to fatten them up. People feed corn to they crack it first and feed it to their chickens and stuff like that. It doesn't have weird stuff on it, because you'd kill your prize-winning blue ribbon goat if you put poison into your goat, right? But it's not sold for human consumption because it hasn't gone through all the FDA stuff, but it's fine. And some of it is cleaner than others, meaning chaff and stuff like that. But the other day I bought 200 pounds of it. I bought 5 40-pound bags of feed corn. And around deer season, which is fixing to be not that long from now, they sell it by the pallets of it are in these stores, because people put the corn in their deer feeders. And again, it doesn't have poison on it, and you can eat it, and it makes the best cornbread in the world. So that's where I recommend you find your corn. Rice and beans, I told you, go to Sam's or something like that. And then wheat. The The worst way to buy wheat is online when it comes in like the number 10 cans. That's like ridiculously expensive. Wheat, you're going to have to find a place that, like a feed mill, that gathers in the wheat from all the farmers who grow it and buy it there. And for some of you, that may involve travel. We have, the Shofarians have on several occasions rented a truck to drive from like 10 hours away to bring us a whole truckload of bags of 50-pound sacks of wheat. And then we figure out, and the person who's been responsible for that mostly is TJ, the bear. He figures out, he finds people who can make that happen. He arranges it, and then we figure out, all right, we've got this many sacks of wheat coming. We spin it around the Shofarians, who wants what. Do the accounting, we still have wheat left over. Then we call the other mags in the area, and we're like, hey, we have wheat available for this price. And that's how we do it. But in the past, I have gone to the feed store itself, to the mill out in the country where there's farmers and they grow crops like wheat and corn and soy. When they harvest it, they bring it into a local mill and they sell it. And then that mill sells it to other people and stuff like that. And we would go there and buy it in the 50-pound sacks, pretty cheap. And then you take it home and you got to store it. Because we're talking about these 4 things store well in all kinds of conditions, assuming you package them correctly. Excuse me. And the way we store that is simply in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. 3 buckets holds about 100 pounds of product for planning purposes. And so we do that. A friend of mine, a Shofarian, told me about a week ago, it's getting hard to find Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. And so yesterday I wanted to buy some, and I went online to Amazon, which is what I usually do. I go to Amazon and I order, 10 Mylar bags with 2,000 cc oxygen absorbers, and that'll do 10 buckets. No, not available. And so I had to go outside of my normal channels, and I think I found bags at a company called Uline. Sells a lot of warehouse type stuff. They were expensive. And then I found oxygen absorbers from another company. But I had to go to 2 different companies. It was so inconvenient. We got together with a group and put up some wheat and did not have Mylar bags. Because the one way to do it is Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. There's plenty of videos on the internet about that. Go watch them on how to do that. It's easy. We do it here and we live off grid. We turn on our generator, plug in an iron, and that's how we seal the bags. And so we took 55-gallon drums, steel drums that once held pineapple juice, so nothing evil in there. And we stored wheat in them. So you figure a 55-gallon drum will hold 11 buckets of product, right? And the way we did it, I looked up, and I don't remember what the numbers are. You'll have to Google it. Google is your friend. Not really, but you use so much diatomaceous earth per pound of product. And I figured out what that was, and I took a big bin, like a tote bin, and I'd pour half a bag, so about 25 pounds of wheat into the bag, and then I put half of the amount of diatomaceous earth. I think I did a video on it for here, into that amount of product, and I stirred it with a big stick, and then I poured it into my 55-gallon barrel, and then I did the other half of the bag, because 50 pounds of stuff is too much to stir around and try and get the diatomaceous earth in there. Diatomaceous earth is crunched up sea fossils or something that kill any bugs that are in your product. Again, look it up. This is not that video. We're going long already. And so I'd mix it up half a bag at a time until I filled up the can, and I put the lid on, put the metal band on it, sealed it. It's fine. So that's a way that you can store it in bigger bulk. We have been talking a lot, and we haven't come up with a good solution yet on how to fill these IBC totes, Kevin. up. Thank you. IBC totes up with product, but there's complications in that. For most of you, buckets will be fine. I know people who use like 1 gallon Mylar bags and put 1 gallon of product in it and seal it and then dump those into like a metal trash can or something like that. The reason you want a trash can or a steel container or something like that to hold your Mylar bags in is so that mice don't chew right through that Mylar bag and get at your product. Somebody asked, which was one of the impeti for me to do this video, do I need food grade buckets? You do not need food grade buckets if you're doing the Mylar bag thing, because the Mylar bag encloses your product. So what you could technically throw it all in your septic tank. Sealed Mylar bags of product, and bring it out, clean off the bag really good, and open your product and be fine. So you don't need food grade buckets. But you do need something hard, because if you just stack Mylar bags, they'll get holes in them, they'll get rips in them, mice will chew right through them. So you need something. And, trash cans are pretty cheap, so people do that. So that's your long-term stuff. That should store fine in heat and cold and stuff like that. However, if you can, try to keep it cool, dark, dry, and insect-free. All right, canned goods. Stop that, please. That's bad for my video. And smack him for that. I think he thought you were Suka. Sorry, dog stuff. Canned goods. When Sister Kate and I first started really ramping up, like 1998, pre-Y2K, we would buy cans. We lived in a suburban house. We'd put them in the shelf, and then we'd go buy more cans. And it's like, oh, these cans are 2 weeks newer than those cans back there. Pull everything off the shelf, put these new ones in, put the old ones on. That was a pain in the neck. But you really want to do that because you want to eat your oldest stuff first. And then I found the book, and people have posted the link to it here before. I think it's called Family Home Preparedness, put out by LDS, the Mormons. Now they call themselves the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Don't call them Mormons, whatever. The Mormons put it out. And it's an excellent book on intermediate survival preparedness. And in that book that a Mormon friend gave me, they had a diagram for a set of shelves. And I've done videos on these. You can search my YouTube channel for food storage shelves. You'll probably find it. And they're at an angle. And so you put your cans in at the high end. There's spacers in there. And they roll down to the bottom. And so you've got a whole row of baked beans and a whole row of peas and a whole row of corn. And actually each shelf held 2 full-size cans and a can of tuna in the middle. That's a really good way to go. And we're going to do that here eventually with our canned goods. And then that way, you're always eating the stuff you put in first because it rolls down. And again, you can look that up on my YouTube channel. So that's a good way to store cans, and you don't have to dig through it. Back to the grocery store and food storage. Other than the stuff on the margins, the fresh food, which is basically all we buy at a grocery store usually, everything will last a year. Pop-Tarts, crackers, anything in a jar, jelly, pickles, mayonnaise. I don't know, what do you guys eat? I mean, Doritos probably last a year, right? I don't think it's a good use. Woo, another earthquake. I don't think it's a good use of space for your food storage. But just start stocking stuff. Now, another thing to think about, nutrition. I did a video here not that long ago on Patreon talking about protein and talking about all the protein sources I have and the fact that I'm still concerned about protein. Are you? I think is how I did it. Protein's important. That's why we store peanut butter. Protein that you like. We don't eat ham. We don't eat pork. I recommend you don't. But I know reality. Every now and then they sell those little canned hams really cheap. They put them on special. And if I was a filthy pork eater, meaning the pork is filthy. I'm not giving you crap, but I am kind of throwing some darts. But if I was, I'd probably buy, bunches of them. We used to store a lot of tuna. And at first it was cans, and I worked in an office environment where we got the paper, the reams of paper for the copier, and those boxes are pretty heavy-duty boxes. I'd bring the boxes home, and at one time I knew how many cans of tuna you could fit in one, like 112 or something like that. And we used to store that, and then tuna started coming out in the little MRE pouches, right? The Mylar pouches. And I just started buying the whole cardboard flat of them when I'd go shopping. So we had a lot of tuna. And then somebody told me tuna's bad for you and it has mercury. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. But then I looked it up. And I had 2 daughters at the time, young. And like, 8th grade, high school. And the FDA talks about how much tuna one shouldn't eat. Oh yeah, look it up. So anyway, we divested tuna for the most part out of our house. And so now we don't eat ham. We don't eat tuna in large part. We have a little bit of tuna. What do we do? Well, around here, I don't know that I've ever seen it before. They sell tuna cans, the can like that, of chicken. So we buy that. And it comes cooked, but it's better if you sear it in a frying pan or make it with something with a sauce or something. But hey, it's chicken, it's protein. And we buy peanut butter. And what else do we do for protein, sweetie?
We have cashews. We have.
Oh yeah, we have lots of nuts. We do nuts for protein. What else? Food storage. What meats are we doing? Are we doing a lot of storage meat? We got the chicken, and my wife just canned a whole bunch of chicken the other day. We've canned a lot of venison. We have beef and venison in the freezer. I have a great video, Hamburger Rocks. Look that one up. That's a really good thing to do with hamburger. And then it stores shelf stable that way. But anyway, think about your protein. Think about your fruits and veg. Those kind of nutrients that you get from them. Think about vitamin C. If you have kids, think about milk, especially. We do Parmalat. You can also get cases of canned milk. There's a lot of things you can do. And so I need to wrap this up because we're going too long. You should. People hate hearing that word, but I use it a lot. I think you should have food storage in at least 3 ways. You should have your long-term food storage, which is your buckets of stuff that you're basically probably not going to get into. You don't have to. It'll last forever until, bad times come. So you have your buckets. That's like your long-term end-of-the-world stuff, man. Then you should have a robust pantry. That's, again, you could go up to a year on that. You have to build shelf space. You have to have a meaningful rotation of things like that. But a robust pantry. We're talking something the size of a small bedroom for the average family. So figure that one out. That can't be in your garage. That has to be in a climate-controlled space for the most part if you want that stuff to last. And then I think there's a place for lightweight emergency rations, like everything, all of your plans have failed and you're basically hoofing it, right? So then lightweight